All right, welcome to the channel. I have a pretty special person. I have Heather here. Uh, Heather has a pretty amazing story. It's quite incredible, especially if you're struggling with derealization and intrusive thoughts. So, Heather, thank you for joining the channel. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So, Heather, let's get right into it. Um, how did all of this start, and how long ago?
Okay, I would say it's probably been since December 2019
Mhm.
because I had I had gotten a cold. Like my whole family got sick. And like right before I got sick, like my grandma passed away and my husband's grandma passed away. Like it was like a lot of like I think that kind of added to, I don't know, like all this anxiety. But I had gotten my whole family got sick, and like I got a cold, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I went to the doctor, and she gave me some antibiotics, and like she's like, "Oh, you should be able to." Like I had a lot of what's it called? It was kind of hard to breathe, and so she said, these antibiotics will take care of it."
Mhm.
And so, but I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so it got so bad that one night I was gonna call 911 because I just couldn't breathe. And like we had tried like everything, like humidifier, um, like taking hot showers to like open up my whatever you call it, like. And so nothing worked. And I just kept waiting and waiting and like I'm gonna get better. And but one night it got so bad that I just could not breathe. I couldn't even speak. And I told my husband, like, I need to call 911. I couldn't even talk, but I like knew that I had to call like somebody because I just couldn't breathe. And so he said, like, let me take you to the hospital. And I'm like, I don't even know if I can make it to the hospital. So like we rushed to the hospital, and like they started doing breathing treatments, and like the breathing treatments weren't working. Like I heard the nurses and like in the background, they're like, nothing's working. And they told me that my oxygen was 60%. And so they told me, they're like, maybe you have blood clots in your lungs. So they like checked my lungs, they checked my heart, like they did like all kinds of tests. And by the time that I left, like I was in the hospital for a few days, but by the time I left, they're like, oh, you have pneumonia. And so I was like scared to leave the hospital because I was like, I had that, I remembered what it was like not to be able to breathe. And they gave me like an inhaler, and they gave me steroid pills to take to open everything up. And so I had to take them for like a long time, like. And but I noticed that when I came home from the hospital, I started getting nervous at night because like it all happened like at night, like the whole pneumonia thing, like when I went to the emergency. And so I started getting like a little bit afraid. And I think it just kind of built up, like the fear, like over the months. And I still like had difficulty breathing, like even months later. And so in the summer, it was like July, we went camping, July 2020. And I like we had a fun time. It was like a fun day, me and my husband and my three kids. And we went to sleep that night, and I remember waking up like at 2 in the morning, and I like with the same feeling that I had when I went to the emergency room. And I was like, I can't breathe, like I'm gonna die. Like I just like I remember sitting still with like fear, like what is it called? Like you freeze. And I'm like, if I move, like I'm gonna die. And so I remember I was like, I should wake up my husband, but we're like an hour away from the hospital. And so I'm like, I probably will die on the way to the hospital. Like, so I'm like, maybe if I just sit here, like it'll pass. And so I sat still for a while and it eventually went away. And in the morning, sorry, in the morning, I told my husband, like, I don't know what happened to me last night, like something really strange. I think maybe I have my pneumonia or I got the virus that, from the pandemic. And um, we went home, and like a couple weeks passed, and I didn't really think much of it. Like I was like, okay, like I mean, it was kind of scary, but it's probably not going to happen again. And a couple weeks later, I was in the kitchen and I felt like I was having a heart attack. Like my heart was like pounding. I just had like this really weird feeling. And I was like, I'm dying. Like, I probably need to go to the emergency room. And my husband, like, he was there. And I said, like, I think I'm dying. Like, there's something wrong with me. And he said, if you go to the emergency right now, like, I won't be able to see you because of the whole pandemic. And so I'm like, okay, like, I guess if I'm going to die, like, I guess, I don't know. But it passed, like, it passed again. And so the next day I made an appointment to see the doctor. And I told her like my experiences that I was having. And she said, it just sounds like anxiety. Like it sounds like you just have anxiety. And she said, let me give you this prescription. And she gave me this prescription. It was called like hydroxyzine. And I guess it's like uh, allergy medicine that like is supposed to calm me down. And I've always been kind of scared to take medicine. Like I've never been one that like wants to get on medicine. But I mean, this was just one that you take like as needed. And so I I started getting like high anxiety, like that I was going to keep this thing was going to keep happening. So I would take one, and but I noticed that it would kind of knock me out. And I'm like, how am I going to take care of my kids? Like if I'm sleeping, like I can't be knocked out like this. Like this is not working. So I went to another doctor and like I told her everything that had happened. And she said, it's probably situational anxiety. It's probably from the pandemic. And so she said, I have a therapist that I would recommend to you for you to go see. And like she'll help you take care of this and you won't have problems anymore. So I was kind of excited, like maybe like this will get fixed. But my appointment was like 2 or 3 weeks later. So in the meantime, I was like, what am I going to do? I like had this fear all the time. And I have this friend that's a nurse. And I called her and I said, hey, like, I told her what was happening to me. And she said, oh, that happens to me all the time. And so I'm like, really? I'm like, what can I do? Like, what can I do for this? And so she came over to my house and she was like, let me show you some breathing treatments. And so the breathing treatments didn't work for me. And she said, whenever you feel like you're going to get a panic attack or you have anxiety, go for a walk. Like, just go for a walk, do some jumping jacks, go running. Like, you need to get your body moving. So, like, I started like going for walks. Like, I started running. Like, but it was like all day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how can I live like this like all day long? Like, and so, but I remember I couldn't sit still. Like, I remember feeling so like watching TV, like I couldn't even watch TV, like I couldn't listen to music. I was like so anxious like all the time. And so I googled like what can I do for this? Like in the meantime, because I had 3 weeks until the therapist. And I found somebody talking about Claire Weeks. And so it was like in the reviews it said something like this lady saved my life. And so I thought, okay, I have to get this book. So I got the audiobook and I was listening to her like every day, like every day, all day. And I'm like, okay, like she understands like what I'm going through. Like, how does this lady that lived like so long ago, like how does she know like my symptoms, like exactly how I'm feeling? And but I didn't understand like the floating or like how to accept, right? Like I didn't, but I mean it felt good just to know that somebody like knew what I was going through, like that she was writing about how I felt. And so I was getting a little better maybe, but the time came for my therapist like to see her. And like I went in there to the appointment and I told her like this is like what's been happening to me. And she said, first of all, like your brain, if we were to do a scan right now, would look different from other people's brains. And so I'm like, what? Like what's wrong with me? And she said, you're missing chemicals like in your brain. And she's like, "Don't worry, like we'll find the right medication for you." And I'm like 35 years old. Like, how would my brain change like suddenly? And she's like, "Oh, probably age or the altitude that you live in, like the mountains, like there's lots of things that can do it." And she said, "But there's like these magnetic treatments that you can do. Like you can put like magnets on your head and it will like make your chemicals like start working right." So I'm like, "Man, I'm crazy." Like she made me feel crazy. And so I was before I left, I said, "Have you ever heard of Claire Weeks? Like I've been reading Claire Weeks." And she's like, "Who?" And I was like this book that I've been reading, like it's been kind of helping me." And she's like, "No, like people didn't know about brains back then. Like we know a lot about brains today. Like people just didn't know enough back then." She's like, "So you probably need medication." And so I went home and I was like there's something wrong with me. Like I'm like maybe I'm crazy. Like all of a sudden, like I don't know what's happened to me. And so, like I remember, like that night, I was playing a game with my family, and I couldn't concentrate. Like I was just so anxious. Like my kids were like laughing, and my husband was laughing, and like here I was, like stuck in my head, like scared of being scared, afraid of being afraid, you know. And so I'm like, I can't live like this. I have 3 kids, like, and my husband, and I can't live this way. So the next day, I went to the doctor, and I heard of people taking medication, and it scared me. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, if what she says is true, then I probably need the medication. Like, so I went the next day, and I was like, can you please like prescribe me something, like maybe Zoloft, because I had heard like some women take Zoloft after they have babies or something. And she was like, sure. And so I started taking the medicine, and but I was feeling like upset about it because it's not how I lived my life. Like all of a sudden, like I had to take medicine, and like, and so I started googling Claire Weeks again, and I'm like, there has to be something else. Like there has to be. And somehow I found your channel, and you were like saying the same things that she was teaching, but today, like in today's time, you know, like you were explaining like everything that I was going through, but like more modernized, I guess, because Claire Weeks I didn't understand. And so I started watching like your YouTube videos, and like I would watch them again and again and again. And I would listen to Claire Weeks again, but I don't know. It took time to learn how to accept, you know. And but after 2 months of being on that medicine, I said I'm not going to get better if I keep taking this. Like this is not the way to overcome anxiety. Like what if I stop? I mean, what if I stop taking it one day and I don't learn how, you know, I didn't learn how to overcome it. And I didn't want to be on medicine forever. And I was like, this isn't the way to get better. So I only took it for 2 months, and then I got off of it, and I just started like accepting, and like I listened to like I found like other people too that had you know, like Dare, like I listened to that too a little bit. And there was a podcast this other guy made that I would listen to sometimes. He'd been through like panic attacks and anxiety. And so that helped me. And so I just started listening to that, and like I started getting better and better.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You managed to do this all on your own, and so, um, that's pretty amazing. Um, how what was really your biggest, most debilitating symptom?
I think they all were. But in the beginning, when it first started happening, I couldn't stand being alone.
Mm,
Like my husband, he has a job during the day, and at nighttime he farms. And so as soon as he would get home, I would be like, I have to go with you.
mhm.
So I would drag all my kids, and I'd be like, we're gonna go help daddy now. Like you have to come with me because I can't be home alone. And so I would like follow him around. And I'm not usually like that. Like I've always been independent, but I couldn't. I did not want to be alone. I was so scared.
Was there
So
was difficulty breathing one of the scary ones too?
um Yeah, yeah. Like, at first, I remember, like, I would do the breathing exercises, and, like, I felt like they would make breathing worse, and then I kind of became obsessed with, like, not being able to breathe, and so I remember I had my hospital thing that you breathe in, like, when you have pneumonia, and I was, like, using it even when I didn't have it because 'cause I'm like, "I'm not getting enough air," and so I would use it, like, even when I didn't have I mean, it was, like, all in my head,
Yeah,
so
yeah, and the reason why I asked that specific question is specifically because of the history, because
mhm,
and so when you have the panic attack, it's very easy when that happens, people use, like, the old memories,
mhm,
and they're like, "Yeah, but what time? What if this is different? What if this one's different?" I'm sure you went through the same thing. Uh,
mhm,
and then you started dissociating a little bit, right? You started experiencing realization and stuff like that.
yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
So I remember going outside and, like, I don't know, it's probably because I don't know if it's because the therapist said the mountains were causing my panic attacks, but I would go outside and, like, it's like when you have anxiety, like, you zoom in on everything, right? Like, your mind is looking for a threat everywhere. Like, and so I was, like, really zoomed in on the mountains. Like, I have no idea why. Like, I was just, like, looking all the like, it looked weird to me. And so that's one thing.
Yeah.
And, I remember also, like, one morning when this all first started happening, I was, like, laying in my bed, and the sun was, like, shining into my room, and I like, me being afraid, like, and I was like, "Why am I afraid?" Like, why am I woke up in the morning with, like, this fear, like, the sun shining. I'm like, "Oh, it's a beautiful day," but I'm, like, so terrified. Like, that was a weird one too.
Did you ever feel like this was an anxiety because of the bizarreness? Because, like, these are really bizarre things. I always thought and anxiety was just being nervous.
Well, so when I went to that lady, the therapist, she asked me if I had depression, like, if I like stayed in bed all day, and like I didn't have any of those symptoms. But like when I left, I'm like maybe I'm crazy. Like maybe I have like schizophrenia. Maybe I have like bipolar. Like I don't know. And so that's been one of the intrusive thoughts I've had. Like have all been about being crazy. Like maybe I'm crazy and nobody knows. Like maybe. And so yeah.
And so what really so Claire Weeks, the channel, you were part of the group. What other things kinda helped you on the journey? Because I know the journey, like, it's long. What
Mhm.
things that really were giving you some aha moments, especially, doing it the way you did. Um,
Um, well, when I first started having panic attacks, and I would tell people, like, I don't know why I was like so open about it, but I would be like, hey, like I've been going through panic attacks, and like people that I know would be like, I've gone through that too, and like I didn't realize that so many people like go through this, like, because before this all happened, I never had anxiety, like I've never had any problems like my entire life, and so, but it like I realized that I wasn't alone. And I think that kind of helped, like the people I knew like around me had like been through this. I wasn't the only one.
what would you tell somebody who was probably at the lowest point that you were, who was afraid of going crazy? Um, what would you tell that person if you could tell them something?
Mm, but they're not. That anxiety can trick you. Like it can like take your worst fear and like make it seem like it's real, and but you have to keep hanging on and like realize that it's just a trick.
Was there any aha moments um, during recovery where it was like, this was anxiety, this is anxiety, or was it just kind of like a slow progression of learning, how to
Um,
accept and move past?
um, well, like just how it all started with the panic attack. Like everything started with that. Like so I'm like I wouldn't feel this. I mean, I knew that that had to be where it all came from. Like what else would it have been, you know?
I thought the
So,
same. I didn't know what it was a panic attack. You and I were the same. Never really struggled with anxiety. Like, sure, I had experienced anxiety, and I learned
mhm,
during my recovery journey. Oh, I've experienced anxiety before.
mhm.
Like, this was a whole level that I was like, no, something's wrong. And I almost, when it was my struggles, I I made a huge mistake, which was I associated having anxiety as a character flaw, and because of that, I didn't want it to be anxiety. I wanted it to be
Yeah.
something in my control.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that.
Because it's like all in your head and you feel like there's nothing that you can do. Like, you know what I mean? If you're sick or something, like you can go and fix it. But it's like it takes a lot of your like mind to like overcome something like this for sure.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so, how are you living now? How's everything now?
So like I go weeks like without feeling anxiety, but like sometimes it will like pop up here and there, you know? But like I know that it's just like adrenaline, like my body giving me adrenaline. And so it's not like a big deal now. Like I don't make it into like a disaster. So, but I mean, I think when I was recovering, it felt like how you've said before, like it's like up and down. Like one day you feel like you're drowning, and then like and the next day you're like, oh, like I have air now. And then like the next, you know what I mean? Like you go down and then it's like up and then down and then your good days become longer and longer and then but you might have a day here where it like pops up again for a minute, but
Yeah.
you just can't let it ruin your day. Like you can't fall for the trick.
Yeah. Yeah. But how's the intensity?
It's not really intense anymore. Like my symptoms kind of left like a long time ago. But you know, like just the sometimes I get like a rush of adrenaline. But I remember like I used to have heart palpitations just sitting on the couch. Like now I don't get that. I haven't got it for a long time.
Yeah. And the thing here is that um, now it's kind of like what I tell everybody. More time,
Yeah.
just more time to be sensitized, and even these small bouts also disappear.
Mm,
That's honestly what it feels like. I mean, even the small bouts that I used to get like right after recovery, I mean, they just even those don't happen anymore,
mm,
and so it's great. I mean,
mm.
amazing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you on the channel sharing your story. So glad you're part of the mentorship.
Yeah,
Helping
me too. Mm,
others, and yeah, like it was always one of those things where I get very impressed by people that share their story. I don't think I would have been one of them, which is
mm,
weird, right? Because I have a channel and that's all I talk about. But like right when I got out, I didn't want to. I just didn't know how people were going to react.
mhm.
I think in my head, I kind of did have a stigma too. I was like, I knew I was fine, but I didn't know if other people thought I would be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, okay, well, you can get out of this. Once I was convinced, I was like, okay, cool. But then I always thought if I mentioned it, other people would be like, oh no, Sean's anxious. Don't do this. Don't do that. But I never
Yeah.
had that happen. It was more of a
Mhm.
relief. But
Yeah.
it just, I think I really admire when people do tell their story because it's very,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm sad that people don't get help, like the help that they need. Like I realize now like how many people go to that same therapist like telling her that they're anxious and like she probably diagnoses them with something else or like how like I'm kind of sad about like all of that.
And I went to, um, therapists or even specialists in general who, yeah, said some stuff that really wasn't really appropriate, I guess, in terms
Mhm.
of to tell somebody. There's a lot
Yeah.
of misinformation. There is. And I think it's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why it keeps so many people in the cycle. And
Yeah.
people would come out. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do in the mentorship,
Mhm.
get people out fast. And
Mhm.
you sharing your story does that. There's people. I think you said you saw American Story, right?
Yeah. So I saw all your stories and I like them all. But yeah, I would watch Mirka's like over and over again like while I was struggling, you know, and 'cause I was getting better, but I still needed, like, inspiration, you know? And so that one helped me a lot.
Now it's wild. Now you work with her.
Mhm. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Like I say, I'm glad you're on the team, and there'll be someone out there that will say Heather's video really helped me, and
Mhm.
great. It's
That'd be nice.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the channel. Everybody else, if you really want to know more about how to overcome, how to get out of this, I'll put two links down below. I'll put several links. One link is to a Facebook group. We're putting more exclusive content in there. Heather's in that group. We have quite a few people that have recovered that are helping other members. And then the second is a report, a book, kind of breaking down how recovery looks like, what to expect, and how to respond. We just kind of mentioned acceptance. What does that really mean? How to really get out of this? So links are down below, as well as applying for the mentorship. If you want to work with me and Heather and everybody else on the team. And other than that, Heather, again, thanks again, yeah, for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll see you guys in the next one.